my buddy Chip, the ref, who's on my show all the time, just sent me this.
What the?
Excuse me? This is crazy, and you have to do this with nobody in front of you, so there's no defense. But that is legal at all levels. So you've seen those footage, right? This is some of those guys. Other YouTube channels will do these, historical things, and they'll show like Elgin Baylor does a crossover, and they call it carry, right? Mm-hmm. So do you know why? Like back in the day, then, do you know what the reason was for that? Why they'd say it was? Oh, of course it's a carry. Do you know what the reason was?
Weren't they just like really strict on it has to be up and down
on top of the ball, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. There's a rule in the rule book, I guess, that dictates that your hand has to be on top of the ball. Let's go find this rule. So I actually went and I got rule books from every decade. This is from the 50s, a rule book, right? I went and got every rule. I'm like, where is this rule? Here's the 40s. Where is this rule? And the 50s, 60s, 70s. Where's this rule that says your hand has to be on top of the ball? And guess what? It's not in there. Now, what it does say is you can't pause and you can't have your hand underneath the ball. Okay, great. Did that ball pause when he did a crossover? Hell no. So what was going on was a group of these referees, I believe, got together, and whether it was sanctioned or not, and said, hey, we're going to call the game a certain way, even though it doesn't specifically say that in the rule book. Now, was there a team in that era that was doing fancy ball handling stuff on games? Was there?
The Globetrotters, I guess.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
That was right. The Globetrotters. So you can picture a bunch of probably crew-cutted referees, probably in the South, all getting together and saying, we're not going to let that in our game, right? So we're going to call this stuff. Now, independent of the racial overtones, undertones, whatever you want to call it, of that, because remember, they banned the dunk for 10 years in high school and college. You remember this?
Mm-hmm.
1968 to 1978. Do you know what that coincided with? Do you know why they decided to ban the dunk?
Because of
Will?
Kareem.
Kareem.
So Kareem comes in, dunks over everybody, and then they say, whoa, we can't have this. Now, George Mikan dunked on people. Were they banning the dunk then? No. Now, the reason why I get more upset about this is that the way they decided to call the ball handling stuff, this BS thing, hand on top of the ball, it basically it set back dribbling ability for decades, because all of us growing up were convinced you had to have your hand on top of the ball, so we didn't develop good ball handling skills because of that. When I can teach dribbling now, and it's so easy because I can explain, remember, we're going to go through your legs. Well, where's your hand have to be? On the side of the ball. Then you can propel it a lot better. When you understand that, at least there's always these random players that were just great at ball handling, right? No matter what, with all the whatever drills, that it just made sense. But for a lot of people, it was really hard. And so now we can unlock a lot more of that, and it makes it a lot easier to coach. But all we're doing is following the rules. So back then, they were not following the rules. And everyone believed it. They thought it was, and no one had the rule books with them. And so as a result, it changed the way the game was played, and it had a lot of racial overtones, unfortunately. And the dunking thing, especially a good starting out point. Can you believe that Dr. J was not allowed to dunk once in his college career? It was outlawed the whole time he was at UMass. Not one dunk you'll ever see from him in college. That's a crime. And by the way, I'm also interested as part of the documentaries. I kind of want to know what the meeting was, because I can get the meeting to put the rule in. I can kind of get that late 60s tumultuous civil rights movement. There's probably a lot of coaches in there, with Southern accents, saying we can't have this. But I want to know what the room looked like in 78 when they allowed it again, because they had to have coaches who were still against the dunk and still wanted to keep it out of the game. And I want to know what that back and forth looked like. There might be some people still alive from that, because that would probably be really interesting as well. So there's my little history lesson there about that. But it's fascinating because it reverberates all the way until now in terms of how we had to deal with that. Allen Iverson comes in and probably is the guy, right, that finally pushes this notion of where we can have our hand on the ball, right? That really helped, but he was also maligned for a lot of reasons that were unrelated to basketball. So at any rate, we have a great game. And it continually evolves, and I'm all for it. I love when we come up with newer and more interesting things to bring to the table that are creative and are within the rules and all that stuff that we realize that are legal. So anyway, forgive me for talking that long, but that's what's going on. That's where we got to. That's how we got here.
I thought that was very interesting. And now we're here at Tyrese Halliburton. and Jordan Poole.
Oh, yeah. No, listen, the carry thing has got to be cleaned up, man. I'm telling you right now, the carries. I will be an old head on that one. It is bad because you know what? It does pause. That's pausing. That's no question. And, and I'm the king. If you follow me on Twitter, I have to walk people through, and I do. I don't know why. Tell me not to, please. Would you DM me next time and tell me stop responding to these people? But I do it because I'm trying to help people understand. It's hands on the side of the ball, not underneath. The ball didn't pause. It's not whatever that half court shot that Peyton Pritchard hits, right? That would travel. It's like it really wasn't a travel, But so I'm that guy who's trying to help understand that so that we can get to the next level. Like there's probably even things we haven't thought about. Those crazy, shots from the Philippines where you see guys doing incredible stuff and leaping across court, whatever. It's legal. Like a lot of that stuff is legal by the rule, and that's fun. That's exciting.
What are you doing in the country? Wait, hold on. I'm Filipino. What's going on in the country?
You know that one guy who has like a hat on and he'll say, "Is this a travel?" Now he'll do something crazy twist.
Yeah.
So they have like a Filipino version of it as well. And they'll do some, because James Harden did it one year, but they'll do some like leap, but the ball is like faked here, and then they'll go to the ball and people are like, whoa, that is a crazy travel. It's not a travel though.
I know Anthony Edwards started doing the 1-2 euro, but
the pause step,
the pause step. So
can my buddy Chip the ref, who's on my show all the time, just sent me this, and I'm wondering can I
send it to me on Twitter? Did he?
Wait, I can do this. Wait, maybe I can do this. Will it let me do this? Here's what I'm gonna do. Ready? If we have a second, this is you're not going to believe it. This is legal. This is legal on all levels, according to him, because it's all depends on when you end the dribble. So here, let me do this. Let me open this up, and you'll be able to see this, right? Let me do this. So, can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah. What the?
Excuse me?
That makes sense. I mean, there's no.
I didn't think was kosher. But look what he does. He doesn't end the dribble until he's in the air. And at this point, he hasn't jumped, right? Technically, because you have a live dribble, you're taking out as many steps as you like. Only when he ends the dribble is when you got to start counting steps. Well, at this point, the dribble ended, right? You can see that it ends. It ends after he's in the air. There. Now, this first foot down at all levels is the pivot, the left, and he's allowed to lift that pivot foot and jump, and that's all he does. So imagine that. Now, this is crazy, and you have to do this with nobody in front of you, so there's no defense. But that is legal at all levels.
What's funny about these videos? What's funny about these videos is there's like a good amount of them that are like, there is no need to do this. Like,
I know.
All up, yeah, but they do it. I watch stuff like it. It's interesting.
But some of those could inspire a real move. That's the thing I get excited about. You might be able to take a little bit of it, which is how the game has evolved for everybody, right? Everyone took something from here and something from there. So that's why it's exciting to at least wrap your head around what the rules are, how they work, what you can get away with, and then maybe that'll start to filter in. I love that. I mean, by the way, it's basically the Harlem Globetrotterization of the game, and I'm convinced you can run the high post offense that they ran in a real game. Like, why not? Like, how fun would that be if you got that good? Imagine that. You'd have to be that good that the other team would be like the Washington Generals in a way, and you're cutting backdoor. It's all that stuff. So I love the fact that we could take stuff from the 30s and 40s, which is like the triangle offense, for instance, mix it with the modern skill level individually, and then you get something even better than you ever could imagine from back then. That's what excites me about it. That's why I still have, I have books of, this is a book from the 1920 with the origin of the triangle offense in here. And I look at this, I study it, and there's diagram. Look, there's crazy diagrams written out. Look at that. It's in focus.
I think Darvin Ham draw that up.
Yeah, right. So there's always something you can learn from even back then, and there's some smart guys back then.
Is there a logical reason as to why no one has perfected the skyhook since Kareem? Because I've always asked that too. Like, is there is this a unique shot to him, or is it not as effective as we think it is? Or
we all shot it. I used to shoot a lefty running hook across the lane, and I had a coach tell me not to do it, and I was really good at it. And you know what? Maybe that's what happened to everybody. It's kind of like if you were in kindergarten and you were all finger painting. Everyone's a good artist. And at some point, someone's like, no, that's not how you do it. Let me show you. And they take the pen out of your hand and they draw it for you. And now your inner artist is killed, right? That happens. I was a teacher. I've seen it happen at older ages. So it's possible that, yes, like at some point, a coach said something that indicated, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. We've certainly lost the art, like the way to teach it isn't really out there. I had a really big center on my team, my high school team, years in 2011, 2012, and I wanted to teach him the skyhook. I'm like, you're going to be the guy that's going to bring it back. And he started to do it, but when I first started trying to teach it, I didn't have any reference. You know, I think I have one book that I got from the 80s that I had when I was growing up that has Kareem talking about it, but it's still images, right? It's kind of hard to like figure out, you know, like it's better when it's video. You can watch the whole thing. I think that's part of it. I think that's lost. It's almost like, you know, like the Jedi's lose whatever, somebody, whatever that lore is, where you kind of lose the book and no one knows how to do it anymore. I think that's what happened. It probably some relation to like the underhand free throw is it looks weird, so they don't want to do it, and so the skyhook looks weird. I remember though, speaking of lifting your pivot foot legally to jump, I was trying to show it to him, and I'm like, well, you know, you can't just step and shoot it because that's a travel. You got to dribble it, and once you dribble it, now you got to take an extra step or two, and you're getting farther across the lane. It was hard, but it turns out he didn't have to dribble it. He could just lift his pivot foot, raise it, jump, and shoot it like Kareem did a lot of for all those years. And I didn't, you know, maybe that was actually YouTube was around, but for some reason I didn't even notice it. But only when I finally went through this with like Devin Williams and the referees and stuff on the court did I really wrap my head around, oh my goodness, yes, we can pick up our pivot foot as long as we shoot or pass. And that's the big, you know, one I have to try and help with people on Twitter. So as a result, if people think that that's a travel, then they're not going to teach the skyhook that way either. Because once you start to dribble, you kind of get beyond the midcourt line. Like if you start on one block, and now that the hook is a little bit harder, it's weird. You got to kind of rotate more. Yeah. But once you can just catch it and just step and shoot it, now you're like right in the front of the rim and shoot it. So someone needs to bring it back, no question at all. I think it would be it could be really a really great shot. Terry Cummings, you brought up, by the way, who was, you know, he was a power forward, I guess. He had a really great like jump hook where he would just do like a 2-footed hook, right? We don't see that anymore either, and that was like he did that, you know, 4 times a game for a bunch of points.
The closest player would be Robin Lopez Bezos. He's had the highest hook shot percentage in his since joining the NBA.
I just find it weird because I'm not looking for someone to be Kareem in terms of that being their go-to move, but like why couldn't SGA use like a consistent running hook in his game? Why couldn't Jokic go to it more? Like
Kuzma had it.
Guys. You know what? Actually, this is interesting. And again, you got to cut me off if we're going too long, although I'm good. All those guys had these sweeping hooks across the lane, like all the guards, and they go in, right? And there was no question. And we see it sometimes. We've seen somebody does it. Who does it? Kuzma? No, somebody. Kuzma might have done it once.
Kuzma did it.
Kyrie did it as a game winner this year, low key, but
yeah, so every once in a while we do see it, right? And that's there's hope. But no question that needs to come back. And by the way, so you know how we attack on the catch, right? The triple threat is dead. You don't catch the ball, rip through, wait for the defense to catch up to you. So we all attack on the catch. Well, I started developing the same kind of attack in the post. Because why am I going to catch it, turn, dribble 3 times, bash into the guy, whatever? When I start to split my feet in the post, it's like you can't stop that guy. And then I started looking at some old footage and I realized that's what they did back then. They would do all post moves like on the run. So they'd flash across the lane and they'd catch it like, in the like near the block and then sort of just go right in their move and like a hook shot off the glass like that. So that's the kind of stuff we should be teaching as well. Maybe like Levine does it, the Zach Levine. Somebody else does it, and I can picture it, and it makes me so happy to see like that running hook off of one foot when you're off a drive almost. So, and by the way, then you'll see guys like Jalen Brunson turn a drive into a post up. I did a video on this, and that's also genius, right? Like you get cut off. Okay, now we're into our whole Kevin McHale stuff, right? Which back in the day you wouldn't have done unless you were like parked on the block, call for the ball, got it, take your 3 dribbles and whatever, and then do it, right? Instead, it's like, okay, I'm driving now. I'm into my game. I got to talk to him about it because I'm desperate to figure out how he came up with this because this is like, I don't think anyone else is doing it.
It has to be his dad. It's a great way to get positioned. I think to your point, Bezos, the only reason why people don't do these things or whatever the case may be is totally just due to exposure. Like if you don't have this footage, if you don't have this knowledge, if you don't have whatever the case may be, 1, you're not even going to think to replicate it, or 2, you won't even be able to put your creativity on it. I mean, that's how like a kid, even now, if you go to a park, you'll see like 5-year-olds shooting a basketball that far. 1, they've seen Steph Curry shoot, but then to get their creativity on it, they're like, okay, well, I can't get the ball to the rim the same way Steph does. But if I do this, I can get it there.
Yeah.
And so while I'm not saying that's like good shooting form or anything like that, it's their creativity telling them like, yo, this is how you can replicate this in a way that will fit you. So if they don't know that, like, yo, you see people.
Paul George ain't never done it. So
yeah.
Why
If you see Steve Nash doing this, like, I don't know, this could be how Jalen Brunson got to it too. You see Steve Nash doing this. Just once you get right here, just post up. Just stop.
Yeah.
Post up, take 2 dribbles, and then just finish the basketball. But that's because he was kind of exposed to it. That's my thought process, at least.
But you also have coaches who'll say, well, Steph Curry is special. You can't do what he does, which is like, it's silly. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
If you play tennis, as soon as one guy comes out doing something a little bit different that they notice, everybody emulates. They all reverse engineer that, and we start playing that way. But for some reason in basketball for so long, you had that kind of mindset from a lot of people because, again, there's no test you have to take to be a coach, right? You can just be a coach. And a lot of these guys are suboptimal. And they destroy that creativity. And I think the big fear now is with kids growing up, there isn't any creativity because they're all either on the screens, and when they are playing, it's in a regimented practice setting with like drills versus just free play. And there might be something to that, but that might still be a thing that's been around for a lot longer than people think, like before screens. I mean, I don't know. I can remember when I was coaching in the late 90s in LA, the kids wouldn't watch basketball. Like they didn't watch Laker game the night before. So I try and talk to them about it. And like, yeah, I didn't see it. They didn't, it was weird. It was like a disjointed sense of that.